Hey everybody, thank you for joining us on Recapping with Recapped. My name is Mark Furstein, CEO of Recapped, and today I am joined by Jen, who's going to be an amazing guest talking about some of the lessons of 2023 and what we're going to do differently in 2024. Jen, thanks for being on here. Why don't you give a quick introduction? Who are you? What do you do? Why is it interesting?
Totally. Oh my gosh, why is it interesting? I hope it's interesting. My name is Jenny Igartua. I actually run two companies. Most people know me as the CEO of GoNimbly. We're a RevOps consultancy, but I also had a side hustle turned business, and I make games with a company called Pillbox Games. So I think what is interesting about that is I've got a little bit of perspective on both like B2C running a business and B2B running a business. And one of them is thousands of dollars and the other one is a $25 game. So I think I've got a little bit of an interesting perspective there.
Yeah, and I mean, when we first met, we talked about Pillbox, I think for
Yeah,
like an hour, right, in the board games, and it's
it's
such a
more
nice,
fun.
yeah, it's such a nice breath of fresh air outside of like
Yeah,
B2B SaaS that we always talk about.
totally.
That's awesome. So I guess jumping on those two, what has been kind of the biggest lesson for you, or maybe the biggest surprise on having these two kind of target audiences, right, that are so drastically different, how you think about
Yeah.
business?
I'll tell you a story that kind of showed how unprepared I was to run a B2C company for something with a pretty low price point. When we were manufacturing the game, everything seemed so cheap for me. It was like, hey, for an extra 10 cents, why don't we make the cardstock thicker? I was like, 10 cents? Hell yeah. For an extra dollar, do you want to add gold foil onto it? Do you want a magnet box? It all seemed so cheap. I was like, 20 cents, 10 cents, 30 cents. Yes, yes, yes. Until the manufacturer, they're really amazing, called Panda. They were like, wow, this is the most expensive card game we've ever made. And I was like, oh, okay, that's not good. I'm not going to make any money. And so, I had some lessons there where, in B2B, we throw out and we take these big bets and we spend a lot of money. And I had to kind of course correct and redefine how I think about that. And honestly, I think that helped me in business. I learned that lesson a few years ago of being a little bit more frugal is not the right word, but like just thoughtful about the ROI of things or why we're spending money. And I think we've all caught up. One of the trends that I'm seeing for this year versus next year is we're not going to be spending these like, I don't know, $100,000 booths at big conferences for no reason, things like that.
Yeah,
So
the painful lesson of margin, I guess.
100%.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Being in a lucky position of consulting other companies, especially on the RevOps side, I'm
Yeah.
sure you see a lot of things. Between yourself and between your customers, what worked in 2023? What were the
Mm,
things that actually returned positive ROI?
yeah. Huge emphasis, and I think this is something everybody's felt, the switch from revenue growth to NRR was a big metric shift. And I think that did work, and it worked for all the reasons we all know, which is that's the whole foundation and premise of SaaS is a recurring ongoing business. And it's kind of crazy that we were not focused on the recurring side of things, but that's been a big catch up. So a lot of the projects and work that we've been doing has been around renewal and expansions. How do we make that process better? How do we forecast that better? How do we automate expansions and at least the identification of an expansion, looking at the usage of our customers, the intent online, marketing behavior, or even if they've got a CSM, some human interactions that have happened in order to create that opportunity and increase the amount of expansions that we do, because we all know that if a lot of your expansions are happening at renewal, they could have happened 6 months earlier.
Yeah,
And so having those discussions early and automating that has been a big emphasis of a good amount of our clients.
such a good point. I think people were focused on the renewal. It's just that they assumed that the
Sure.
renewal was by default, right? You didn't have to work that hard. You're just going to get the
Hmm.
business, you know, and with the
Yeah,
growth, you'll hit the 120, 130 NRR.
totally.
But maybe people weren't. I'm not sure.
Well, I guess the question is like, what does it mean to focus on it, right? There was typically, sure, maybe the CSMs own it, or maybe they had alerts that went out 30 days before at
Yeah,
companies where you had like maybe really large ACVs and really strategic relationships. You probably were having those discussions really early and ongoing. But I think, the CS side of RevOps has always been under underinvested, right?
yeah,
They're the redheaded stepchild that wasn't getting any money. And that's the shift that we're seeing. We're doing a lot more like Service Cloud implementations, and we're doing a lot more, like I said, renewal management, or even like what is the playbook for CSMs? Do they own, revenue? Do they not? Is their focus to increase adoption and get closer to the customer, or should they actually be owning the renewal? So a lot more of those conversations are happening than they were a year or two ago. So
Yeah.
it's not that these processes didn't exist. Of course, people automated some renewals and had those conversations, but now people are looking at it critically to say, can I gain more confidence? Can I have a deeper relationship? Can I expand earlier in the relationship?
What were the trends that you saw then? Was it a lot of people shift to success owning revenue, or what were the biggest changes then out of those
Yeah,
playbooks?
actually, I think a little bit of the opposite is, for lack of a better word, just this emphasis on being customer obsessed and having deep relationships with the customer. So how
Yes.
do we put our CSMs in a position to be business advisors? How do we get them in a position to come look and tell you, hey, I noticed these things. You're not using XYZ feature. How about you look over here? And sure, they're thoughtful. They know that if you adopt feature B, the chances that you will stay are 10% more. It's not
Yeah.
completely altruistic, but the idea being, how can I be the most helpful to my customer? You saw some customers even decreasing price, proactively going and saying, hey, you're not using these things, let's talk. Or let me give you a different feature for the amount of money that you're paying. So I don't think it's necessarily making the CSMs more revenue focused. It's actually thinking about them as, hey, you're here to make, like, actually it's in the name, right? You're my
Yeah.
success manager. How do you make me successful?
I love that. Thank you.
Mhm.
What didn't work? What were some of the painful lessons, maybe
Yeah.
the experiments, the hypotheses you guys ran?
I mean, I would say outbound is like, I don't want to beat a dead horse. We're all talking about it. But as a people, we are so good, like humans are so good at identifying a message that's been automated and isn't really for them. I have tried to test myself too by looking at my email. I'm like, why do I know so fast that this isn't for me? Like I can so quickly just press, I use superhumans. I press E to delete. I can so quickly like just delete, 20 of
Yep.
my emails. And so I think we've all sniffed that out, and we know outbound's not working. And the real kicker is, of course, as humans, we go one direction and then we move to the other and then we move to the other. But it's now we're seeing marketing teams take that back over and being like, hey, let me do some of the warming up of leads and then I'll hand you a warm lead. And I'm like, wow, that's what we were doing 15 years
15
ago.
years ago.
Yeah. So I think, the outbound, a very tactical, like, hey, here's a 20 email sequence isn't working.
Yeah.
But, people get creative. Picking up the phones, I've heard anecdotally, is working more. So I don't think that outbound is dead in the sense that, hey, we're still going to go out and get business, but I think it's shifting into in person. I think that young sellers have, in my experience, not the hunger for travel. Like when I was working with salespeople 15 years ago, they're not flying across the country to sell that big deal. They're not going to events and schmoozing and talking to everyone. And I think the ones that will are going to win.
I couldn't agree more. Not to be like back in our day,
Right. I know it
we used to.
sucks. I'm young and cool, I swear.
We live in New York. We're hip.
I know.
Uh,
We're edgy, I
well,
promise.
you are 10 times cooler than I am, but it's funny. I mean, I think just yesterday we were talking on LinkedIn. You and I both have emojis in our company logo,
Yeah.
and literally hundreds of emails a week come in with, question mark little
Question mark. Yep.
icon. Yep, because they're trying to just copy and paste everything that's on LinkedIn. And I agree. I
Yep.
think especially with AI, we're going to see the amount of BS rise exponentially. And so
Yes.
being able to cut through the noise authentically, I don't know how that's going to be, but I think that's going to be the key. And I think a lot of it's going to be personal brand and
Hmm.
leveraging kind of your human element. But
Totally.
you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. It's networks for sure, right? It's also
Yeah.
like, how can you network, help other people? The whole idea of building community, of building a network is that you're helping, right? You have to help
Yeah.
other people for that to work. So I think just being someone who gives a lot is going to make people stand out. And, with outbound, AI is definitely going to make things worse. And personalization has been a big thing that companies have been talking about. Like, hey, we need to personalize. content
Yeah.
before it goes out. So for a while, we've all been getting a little bit annoyed. But I think with AI, it's gotten worse. My inbox is definitely more flooded than ever before. And as we talk about content, content is going to feel a lot more surface level because AI is very good at repeating and changing things slightly and wording things slightly different, but it's
Yeah.
a lot of repetition of the same content that already exists. So I think the brands that are willing to go deep on a subject matter provide like real answers. It doesn't necessarily have to be research, but what we're doing at GoNimbly is we're creating hubs where we're saying, okay, expansion is an example of it. We're going live in January with it, but it's okay, great. You want to look at your expansion processes, you think there's ideas there, come over here. We have podcasts, other people's content, people you should follow, etc., so that you can go a little bit deeper and be like, okay, I trust this content because I think that, 25 blogs about the same thing that all feel like they're repeating
Yeah.
themselves, we're all sick of it. I barely Google anymore. Like, I don't even Google stuff because I don't trust it.
And even when you do find something, it's just so surface level, to your point, right? Either some outsourced blog agency wrote it or AI or who knows.
Right.
Yeah. What do you and you think your clients are going to do differently in 2024?
Yeah, it's a little bit of what I've peppered in. I think I'll just recap it in three things. It's showing up in person. So, like, lots of in-person events, traveling to your customers, just being present. The second thing I would say is like deep relationships with customers. That's actually in our strategy for next year is how do we have both like strength, so like the people that we like really like us or that we know really
Yeah.
like us, and depth. So lots of different personas within our clients know us and like us, and we're going a little bit broader. So that's a huge pillar of what we're doing, and we're spending money there, and we're teaching our consultants how to do that, and we're stretching for our clients. So doing things that we might not normally do, we'll do it for them. And then, oh my gosh, I had three. Oh, depth. So depth in content and research. So going much deeper in each subject matter as opposed to trying to go broad across many.
I love your idea about the hubs. I think we might even
Thank
see like just
you.
as you were talking, I was just like, man, that is such a good idea. And
Yeah, I'll show you one.
yeah, please. I think the core theme of everything that you just said, right? Knowledge, being nearby, like it's being authentic and it's being helpful. Uh,
Hmm.
I love that. What are you personally proud of from this year?
So there's one thing that like keeps coming up for me. Like I love all the work that we do for our clients. We are so lucky that we are working with some of the most incredible SaaS companies. Like I get to call my clients like Zendesk and Intercom and Twilio and
Wow.
Watershed, like these like massive, really amazing SaaS companies that we all look up to. I get to work with them and I do feel really proud of that. But I would say like the thing that I walk away with and I'm like, okay, this is the impact that I have on other people. It's not necessarily like we did some really innovative work. It's that we treat our employees like adults. And I know that that's like a really dumb way of saying it, but I don't think all companies do that. Like, oh, you have a package coming, go get it. I don't know, like you're 5 minutes late because your kid had XYZ, no problem. You got your work done. You want to take 2 hours in the middle of the day to work out, but you like working later. Awesome. Just be available, get your work done, be there for your clients. If you're making impact at the organization, you're doing your job, great. That's all you owe me. You don't owe me anything else. And that rings true for things like I don't appreciate like CEOs that say things like you can't have a side hustle. Like who are you to tell me that I can or can't do something in my free time? I don't own anybody's, I don't own their time. Like it's their impact and yes, it's an exchange. Like it has to be equitable. And I feel really proud that we've done that. We have really good kind of scores at the company when we do our surveys. We have like zero detractors this year when we did like all of our surveys at the company.
Wow.
And that took years of real work. Great Resignation was like a real wake up call, I think, for a lot of companies. And we really invested in how do we make this a place people want to work and feel respected and do meaningful work.
I think a lot of companies could take a page out of that book.
But that does make me feel proud, right? It's the thing I can impact the most. Like
Yeah.
clients and work, they're going to change. But if you can consistently create a place where people feel sense of stability and I don't know, kindness for lack of a better word, you spend more than half your day with us. Let's make
Yeah.
sure it's a good day.
Yeah. Ugh. We we're very fortunate. So we just had one of our engineers two of our engineers just hit their 3-year mark, another one hit the 4-year
Nice.
mark. And so for a
Yeah,
5-year company, it's like they've been
great.
here for 80% of the time. And it's, yeah, I was literally just reflecting on it the other day. I was like, man, like these people have invested their time and money into
Yeah,
us. And like we're
yeah,
so fortunate to be able to hold them for as long as we have. Um,
totally.
yeah. What obviously 2023 was a rough year for a lot of people.
Yep.
Uh very, very optimistic about 24. How can people help you and how can you help
Ooh.
others?
So I think the biggest thing that people can help me with is I want to talk to operators. I want to understand, what's going on, what keeps people up at night, what offerings should I be doing, what research should I be doing. And so I talk to like one or two operators a week. So by all means, if someone's listening to this and is a SaaS operator, DM me on LinkedIn. I would love to chat and just hear where you're at and what you're doing and make sure that we're staying on top of every trend and every pain point. I think that's always really, really helpful, and I appreciate people's time, and I also enjoy it, so it's like fun. How can I help? Well, you've kind of heard through this, like the things that I'm passionate about. I think there's two angles. Like I can help with SaaS and RevOps all day. I think the other thing is I'm very passionate about what our relationship with work means. How do we create focus at work? How do we find meaning in work? How do we let that be something we do, not something we are? Like work is not 100% me. If something goes wrong, it doesn't have to reflect on like my value. So if anybody's struggling with that, I'm happy to help.
Do you have any books or recommendations on being able to dive further into that? Because like that's something I want
Yeah,
to actually have a
totally.
more healthy relationship with
Yeah,
work because it is literally 99% of my life. But I think also for others that might be helpful.
I have like the best resource. There's a company called Cave Day, caveday.org, and they're going to have like every blog and book and everything you can think of in there. But what's cool is that they do cave days, and it can be over Zoom or in person. And actually, you're in New York. If you want to go to one in person, Mark, we can go together. And it's like
I am down. I'm
okay,
looking at the
it's
website right now.
either it's either a full day or you can do half day, and they just facilitate deep work. So you go
Huh.
in, you put your phones away, no distractions, you commit to what you're working on, and you work on only that thing. They do sprints, so they do like 2 or 3 sprints. And to tell you, I've gotten more done in those sometimes in a full week. It's crazy because
Oh, I
you're
believe it.
so committed. Monotasking, if there's anything anybody can like walk away with a hack, it's do only one thing at a time. And it's crazy how fast you'll get it done.
Yeah. I think for me that was my biggest lesson, right? So I've struggled with ADD like my whole life.
Hmm.
And I never realized how much it was kind of controlling my life until
Sure.
this year when I like actually dove in. And now that I respect it so much more, like I've had to implement so many things in my life where I'm like, my phone is on black and white. I'm even
Totally.
thinking about
I do
getting rid
that.
of it. Like things like this were literally like, and I'm so
Yeah.
excited for next week because everyone's gonna be out of the office. I'm gonna
Yep.
have zero distractions. I'm just gonna be able to sit down with 80 ounces of coffee and just get through whatever I need to do.
For sure.
But yes, let's
Yeah.
do a cave day. I'm
Love
one.
it. Yeah.
I
It's
was
so
gonna
funny
say,
you mentioned the phone thing. My boyfriend also has pretty bad ADD. He's a comedian and an artist, so like that really helped. He's got like lots of ideas. But he recently bought himself a flip phone because he was like, I can't do it anymore.
I was
Got a
legit was
sweet
thinking
flip
about
phone.
that.
Yeah.
Has it helped?
I don't know yet. We haven't gotten a plan. He just has it now because it's really hard when you have ADD to get stuff done. So he's bought the
Yeah.
phone, but he hasn't called AT&T yet. So we'll do that next.
But then he's gonna have green text, and then all his friends are
I
gonna shame him.
know.
So,
I know. So embarrassing.
uh, the other way I think people can help you is go get side effects or any of the other
Yeah,
board games that
totally.
you guys have
Yeah, go
produced.
to
Do you have any new ones coming out?
yeah. Well, first it's on pillboxgames.com and you can use promo code I know Jen, all one word, and it'll give you
Beautiful.
because I'm they'll give you $4.69 off, and I apologize. It's a different kind of company, and we make jokes like that. So it is what it is. And yeah, so we have Side Effects. That's our core game that's done really, really well. It's a game about mental disorders. So you have a bunch of mental disorders, and you have to be the first to treat yourself with drugs and therapy. So a little dark, kind of a play on pharmaceutical companies and what they do to us. And then we've made a game called Mud, which is like a political voting game. We have an expansion pack for Side Effects. And then next year, we're doing a kid version of Side Effects. We're doing a
Ooh,
game called Bangs. I have Bangs. It's about a woman who has recently gone through a breakup and is doing everything she possibly can to not get banks.
You told
Inspired
me about
from
this at
real
dinner.
life. Yeah, it's so fun. And then we're doing another game about cults. So you're part of a cult, but you have some people that want to break out of the cult and some people that don't. And, it's a little like Secret Hitler-esque.
Yeah.
So we'll see. It's hard to launch games. We're hoping to launch like one or two, or like at least one, two next year possibly, and then ramp up to more.
So between the most expensive game and a $4.69 discount, I mean, are you making any money on these things?
Honestly, we are now. It's taken like 5 years. I know this is so silly. There's four of us working on it. And in the last 5 years, we just paid ourselves last month $5,000.
Woo! Listen,
So
that's real
yeah, we
money.
are. The thing about this business that I've learned is every time you make money, inventory, it just goes right into inventory. So like, yeah, I
Yeah.
probably have to go get cash and do like the real business thing. And like, this was supposed to be a fun hobby. And now I'm like, oh my God, do I need to go get a line of credit to like become in real business? But no, I mean, we're on our best week, we're making like $20,000 in sales.
Wow.
So it's not small anymore.
That's amazing. And if anyone hasn't checked it out, seriously, check it out. It is probably the most beautiful board game I've ever seen.
No,
Um,
appreciate that.
yeah, and Christmas is coming right around the corner. So, oh, by the time
Right.
this airs, probably not.
Yeah, it
But
won't make it to you, but
uh,
Valentine's Day.
yeah, congrats. That's amazing. My next hustle, I used to have a video game company actually with a couple
Yeah,
friends. So after Recapped exits or whatever takes over the world, I am starting an indie game company because
let's go.
yeah,
That's
but we'll see.
fun.
Maybe you should keep your passion as your passion. I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah. Jay, this has been amazing.
Thank
Thank you for
you.
your time and
So fun.
really appreciate it.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. We'll talk soon.
Thank you.